Hola, everybody. How is everybody doing out there? It's 9 p.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday, so you know what that means. It's time for the live show. Hope everybody's doing well. I have a great show, of course, outlined for all of you tonight. And I think for the first time ever in the history of the live show, there will be a surprise at the end of this as to what we are doing for this Friday's episode, given that the interview for this Friday fell through. Because usually by this time, even though I do not don't talk about the coming Friday's episode until the end, by this time on Wednesday night, I've already posted things on Twitter, on Instagram, on the group, on the page, as to what Friday's episode, what disappearance it will cover. This week I have not, because it's a secret. We're going back into the archives, let's just say. Given that's the new policy. It's been a policy for a while, but we haven't had a real interview fall through in a while. So the policy, although we do not have to tap into it too often, is when something like this happens, I just go back into the vault and look at all of the old episodes and see which one I would like to republicize here in 2021. And so I will be talking about that at the end of this episode. So let's see who's in here. And then I will start into the stuff. Hello, Charlotte and Kathy. Good to see you, Kathy. Hello, Linda. Joyce Rivatuzo. Good to see you, Joyce. Thank you for joining us tonight. Come on, Eileen. Elena, I got a question from Elena that I will be answering some point. LaFord, what's up? What is up with you? And Sheree, thank you for joining us. Thank you for moderating tonight. And Melissa, how are you? What's going on? Am I on the big screen tonight? And CR, good to see you, Paula. K-Dog, hello, all. Question, Ed, are you concerned with where you are living considering what happened in Miami? I'm going to be talking about that, K-Dog. How appropriate that you asked me that. It is on the agenda, and I will certainly be talking about that, not just from a person who lives in a condo point of view, but I think there's a lot that we can learn about disappearances by looking at disasters like what happened in Miami with the collapse of that building. I think there's a lot of similarities in there. Cherie, it's a Fed Albert reference because of Bill Cosby. Hey. Yes. Marcus, what's going on? Melissa says, big screen approved this message. Yes. Glad to hear it. Melissa, thank you for watching on the big screen, smart TV. As I try to remember at the beginning of every video, that live show, that please give this a thumbs up as you are watching live here on June 30th of 2021. And if you are watching the replay at some point, whether it's tomorrow, July 1st, or whenever people are coming to the live show, coming to Unfound as new members, new listeners, new viewers all the time. So if you are happening upon this video for the first time, please give it the thumbs up on whatever kind of device you are using. Robin, good to see you. Hi, how are you? Hello, D. What's going on, D? Twinkle says, cat checking in, can't watch tonight, still unpacking from the move. Yes, very excited about your move, Twinkle. Very, very happy for you. I hope you're having a good time with the move. Yes, D. Hi, Ed. Any everyone. Yes. Well, Ford says, my birthday is Saturday the 3rd. I think we were talking about that on Sunday, right, LaFord? Right? Good for you. I'm glad to hear it. My birthday is a month from tomorrow. I'm going to be 51. Can't believe it. I just can't believe it. Just crazy. So once again, give this video a thumbs up so it helps us with the algorithms. And should you feel motivated to do so, do not forget about the super chat button. If you would like to contribute monetarily to the program, please hit that little square button with the $sign in the middle, and feel free. Not forcing you to do it, just politely asking. It is not a requirement. So what has gone on with me? What do I want to talk about that has gone on since last time we all got together last Wednesday? I went to Orlando. I stayed in a fantastic hotel, not really upscale or anything, but I stayed in what they call the Florida Hotel, and it is attached to the Florida Mall, which was a unique experience. You could go down to the lobby and walk right into the mall. And dare I say it, I don't know what it's like in other states, but Florida is certainly back to business. Both on Friday and Saturday night, the mall was packed. Packed. Nobody wearing masks, people walking around, people in the food court, people shopping. It was insane. Now, I'll admit, I haven't been in a mall in a long time, even before COVID started. Malls, just, no reason to go. But it was crazy. But it was kind of cool having a hotel attached to a mall. First time in my life. And I would do that again. Now, I'm going to be back in Orlando in August for the World Championships that I signed up for last week. But after the live show last week, by the way. But I'm not staying there. It was a nice place to stay for a couple days, but for the Worlds, I'll have to be over there for like 5 or 6 days, and that could get a little expensive in that place. So I'm not going to be doing that, but I would certainly consider staying at that place for future Orlando tournaments. The room was very nice, really liked it. So I think they're doing a nice job there. In fact, as I posted on my private account on Facebook, there was some sort of beauty contest going on there at the same time. I behaved myself. Just calm down. So that's where I stayed while I was over there. Got there. I drove over there Friday morning. That's why the episode came out so early. I practiced for the tournament, went to the hotel, got a shower and everything, went down to the food court in the mall, got my food, went back up to my place, watched a little disc golf, doing some Unfound work, and Saturday did the same thing, and then had my final round on Sunday, and then came home. So it was good. I really, as far as where I stayed, it's probably one of the nicest places I've stayed, little did I know, in all the travel that I've done for playing disc golf tournaments. Your son's going to be 70. I see. 7 is a great age. And hello, Lar. What's up? JR, hello. How are you? Melissa, what? No trips to the mall for Orange Julius? No. I'll tell you exactly where I went. I kind of broke my diet this weekend. I'll just be honest. Melissa, on Friday night, I went to Five Guys. Had not eaten at a Five Guys in years, but they had one in the food court. So I got that. I got a double cheeseburger. I got French fries. I got some soda bottles, Coke bottles. I also got some chocolate chip cookies from the Nestle Toll House outlet that they had in there. I really broke my diet bad. And then on Saturday, I got up, didn't eat all day. And then that evening, maybe around 7, I went down, and Melissa, I went to Sbarro. Of course, every mall has a Sbarro in the food court. So I went to Sbarro and got a lot of pizza. Let's just put it that way. Of course. And I enjoyed that greatly as well. So I tried to do what I could while I was there as far as eating and everything. But it was really cool. They have a Tesla store in there. They have an Apple store. They have a really wide array of food outlets it was really nice. I mean, I know that malls are like going downhill, so I've been told. You see all these closings and everything. Really, a lot of it, not just because of COVID, but because of people shopping online, etc. I don't know. It's very anecdotal evidence, but this mall was crazy this past weekend. Really crazy. Shree says Texas is back in business too. Was in Colorado last week at Coors Field. 30,000 people all breathing the same air. Yeah, Charlotte says I love Sbarros. Me too. Wow. D says, hey, I got to meet one of my husband's son, and their dads, his tweens, get adopted by the same guys. That's interesting, D. Thank you for sharing. Thanks. But otherwise, Orlando played pretty average. Started out very poorly on Saturday morning and then played really well the rest of the round. I had the first two baskets I bogeyed, and then I didn't have another bogey the rest of the round. Played really well after that, but I really put myself way behind at the beginning. And then on Sunday, started out pretty good and then fell apart at the end. I started the tournament with 2 bogeys. I ended the tournament with 2 bogeys. And I came in 11th out of 16 players, 18 players. That's just not good enough. I was only 4 off the lead after the first day, and I think I lost by 12 or something like that. And it was only 2 rounds. So, could have done better. Now, this weekend, I will be playing in a 1-round tournament just an hour north of me, and we'll see how I do. The good thing is there are only 2 players in my division right now, and the other player in my division is lower rated than I am. So, a win's a win, but, you still got to go out there and throw the discs. Now, the other thing maybe that you saw, if you pay attention to sports, is there was a big deal that happened this weekend in disc golf. That the most famous throw probably in history occurred this past weekend. If you don't know what I'm talking about, here on YouTube, look up James Conrad disc golf and you will see it. He needed to make a shot from about 250 feet away in the World Championships on the last basket to send this tournament into sudden death. And he was playing against the 5-time world champion, Paul Macbeth. And James Conrad hit the shot from 250 feet away. And it's video. There's a ton of people there. It's crazy. I was watching it when it happened. I was watching it on live on the Disc Golf Pro Tour video site. I was eating my Sbarro pizza and watching. And it was crazy. Absolutely. If you see it, it's a very, very difficult technical shot that he made. Just unbelievable. And then they went to the playoff, sudden death playoff. They went to number 16, which is what we call an island hole. You have to throw it onto an island, although there's water in the back, not water in the front. And he parked it for a birdie, and Paul Macbeth ended up throwing in the water. And James Conrad became a world champion for the first time. Crazy. But that shot, it right away is already being called the greatest shot in disc golf history, given it was done in a world championship, given the pressure, given the toughness, the difficulty of the shot. Just incredible. Just crazy. And I know when I showed up on Sunday for the second round, last round of the tournament in Orlando, that everybody was talking about. Every player had watched it the previous evening, and it was a big deal. So please look that up. James Conrad. Just look up James Conrad disc golf, and you will surely see. You will surely see a short clip of him. He has long hair and a ponytail, throws this big, what we call big Anheuser shot, hits the basket square, and just everybody goes crazy. Just everybody goes crazy. I just could not believe it. And you can hear the announcers and everything else. And they did a great job videoing it, getting it from different angles. Just really a big deal, I think, for disc golf. It was featured on ESPN Sports Center. It's gotten a lot of attention in the sports world, even though disc golf does not, in general, get a lot of attention in the sports world. So that was fun to watch that. But my disc golf play this weekend was very inconsistent. Elena says it's cool to break the rules once in a while. And who doesn't love pizza? I love pizza, Elena. But I got to tell you, I really have not missed it much since being on this diet. I am down to 176 pounds. But it was great to eat some pizza. It was great to have some chocolate chip cookies. It was great to eat a burger with bread and everything and French fries. And that's great. But I probably won't do that again until maybe another tournament comes along where I go out of town, probably, Elena, which won't be until August. So, but it was nice. Maybe I'll do it on my birthday, a month from tomorrow. Maybe I'll do that. But it's been fairly easy to stay away from that stuff. So that was my disc golfing this weekend. I had some moments of brilliance accentuated by long stretches of mediocrity. Like I said, on my diet, I would say that this is the best I've looked, losing weight and everything going way back, probably to my 30s easily. It's really been something. And being that I've been playing with more guys my age, I'm playing in the 50 and over category. And given my rating, I can play with just about any group that I want. I can play with over 40. I can play in intermediate. I can play in advanced. It just depends. But it's just a little interesting to be out there. And I like these guys. I like playing with people my own age. I don't mind playing with younger guys. I really don't care. But it's interesting because a lot of guys my age are out there. They have wraps on their elbows, wraps on their knees. They're talking about aches and pains and everything else. And I don't have any of that. Why that is, I don't know. But I still don't pull any muscles, don't damage any elbows, no knees or anything else. So I don't know what's up with that. But that's something now that I recognize now that I'm playing with people my age. There's a big difference there as far as people talking about aches and pains. When I'm usually playing with the younger guys in their 20s, they're not, of course, they have no reason to talk about any of that. When I'm playing with guys in their 50s, of course, the topic is quite common. Melissa says, good genes keep you healthy. Maybe that's certainly probably part of it, Melissa. It's also that from an early age, my dad really got me into fitness, doing pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. And I have to tell you that I think that makes a huge difference when people get older. My dad had me doing pull-ups at like 5 years old or something crazy. And that continued right through high school. And I even did that in college. And I was doing pull-ups well into my 30s when I would go to the gym in Las Vegas, but I haven't done a pull-up in a long time. But that, and I think that the reason that has helped is when you strengthen your back, I think as a very young person, then you are less likely to have any back problems when you do get older. I've never had any back problems, except for one little period of time, like in early 2015. That's about it. No back issues at all. So I think that's a large part of it. Maybe some genetics, but I think it's just some things that my dad got me into when I was very, very young. So, but I'll be playing MA50 this weekend. And then when Worlds come along in August, where I will be over in Orlando from a Monday through a Saturday, so 6 days, I'll also be playing with guys my age. It's called the division is called MA50 Amateurs, Amateur Men 50 and over. So we'll see how I do there. Hopefully better than I did this weekend. As far as music goes, really not been able to play a lot. I did the end of last week, but then I went to Orlando, did not take anything with me. And since I got back to Clearwater Beach here, I have to tell you, I've been very, very busy. Being that interview fell through, had to come up what I was going to do otherwise, and then I started taking some new phone calls and some things that I'm going to be talking about later in this show. So, Spleen Girls, I can only do 30 push-ups. I think that's pretty good, Spleen Girl. I think that's pretty good. Thank you, Joyce. Melissa, core strength is great for everybody. Yeah, you got to be strong in your midsection. Got to be strong for sure. For sure. So those are some of the things that have been going on with me. We had a couple huge thunderstorms, lightning, everything come through in the last couple days, including today. A lot of boomers not far from the building, lightning, thunder. So I haven't been out to play at all since Sunday. I haven't been able to, although I did do some putting out on the landing by the elevators earlier today. So let's move on to this. Being that, who was it that asked me about this earlier? Who was it? K-Dog. K-Dog had asked me, question, Ed, are you concerned with where you're living considering what happened in Miami? K-Dog, I'm glad that you asked me that question because it was on my agenda right over here as to what I wanted to talk about. And I wrote about this on my private Facebook page, just what I've seen in this building and what I understand what goes on here. As I've said many times, I do not own this condo. I rent. The people who own this, I believe, live in Ocala, which is like 2 hours north of here. I don't know these people's names. I've never met them. I don't know what they look like. All I do is write a check to the rental, the real estate company, and they take care of the rest. But, I've been following this condo collapse since it happened. I do take it in, even though I'm not an engineer. I've always taken an interest in things like that. You know how much I have this weird fascination with plane crashes that go way back to me being very young, kind of around the same time I became interested in disappearances. But disasters, when I watch the History Channel, when they have like engineering disasters, things like that, I find that stuff fascinating. And if you don't know, when I originally went to college, I was in an engineering program and I did not do very well and had to switch majors. That probably worked out for the best, but there is a part of me that happens to believe, had I been able to get through all the courses and everything, I would have loved to have worked for like the NTSB, investigating plane crashes, showing up and trying to figure out what happened, or something like this. When a building collapses, you show up and, to try to figure out, because it's a mystery. It's a mystery. And I think that my mind works very well in those areas. I think that it's the reason that I feel covering disappearances, looking into them, investigating them, researching them, talking to all these people goes very well with the way my mind works. There are other things that my mind does not do very well. But with this, I think it does. And so with this Miami condo collapse, I can look at this from, two different ways. I can look at this from a person who lives in a building like this, and I also can look at this from a mystery point of view, a disaster point of view, and an investigation point of view. From a condo liver habitant point of view, looking at the pictures of that building before it collapses really shocks me. This building that I live in right here was built in 1986, meaning it's only 5 years newer than that building. And I can assure you, this building looks nothing like that building. If you were to come in, now I have some complaints about this building. The parking is horrendous. There aren't enough parking places for the amount of people, the number of people who live in this building normally. There's barely enough. In addition, the parking lot spaces are very small. I could go on and on and on. That's one of probably the big issues with this property. But I think if you came in here, I think everybody would be shocked to know that this building is 35 years old. I think it's very well taken care of. There are no cracks that I've seen, no cement falling out, no rebar showing, nothing. Nothing. Now, we have some window issues down like on the second floor that probably need repaired. It looks like they've got cracked at some time, things like that, but nothing structurally at all that I can see. And even in fact, in the last 2+ years that I've lived here, I moved in here May 1st, 2019. They've beefed up security. They've added even more security cameras around the property. They've put, there are now locks to get into the pool. It used to be you could just walk in there. Now you need your universal key to get in there. The elevators on both sides of the building, all 4 elevators have been replaced. They replaced all the tile out here by the elevators. They seem to really take care of this place, and it shows. And I think that if I were to tell you how much it costs to buy one of these condos, you'd understand why. Not cheap. But it's a very good deal if you just want to rent. So, as a person who's lived in a condo high-rise, this building it says 20 floors, but technically there's no 13th floor, and people really don't live on the first and second floors. So there are like, what would it be? 17 floors or 16 floors of people actually living in this building. I cannot relate to that building down in Miami from what I've seen there. Can't relate to it. So there's that. There was something going on there that I'm sure they will get to the bottom of it, but I can tell you, I don't want all of you to think that every 40-year-old condo high-rise building is like that one. In fact, I have to tell you that I would be shocked if I were to go into any of these other high-rise condos along this little stretch, what I would call south of Clearwater Beach, south of Sand Key, and there are many of them right here in a row. And the building I live in is one of the bigger ones. I would be shocked to find that any of them were in as bad a condition as that one is in Miami. There's that. However, I can also tell you that one of the a point that I wrote about on my private Facebook page yesterday is that the issue with a lot of these condo buildings is the people who own the condos in the building don't live there. For me, my owners, I've lived here for over 2 years. They've never been here. I mean, I rent, so are they going to kick me out? I suppose they could. But they don't come down to this building. They don't own any other condos in this building. They haven't set foot in this condo in at least the last 2+ years. In addition, most of the time on this 8th floor, there are 3 other condos on this floor. 95% of the time, I'm the only person living on this floor. Most of the time, this building is somewhat empty. And in fact, I can tell you, just a few months ago, I did a little experiment. I went out on the beach at night, looked back toward the building, and started counting the lights in each condo unit. Only 15% of the condos had lights on. So a lot of these condos are not being lived in. They're just owned for whatever reason. Or if they're being rented, they are only rented for a month, a week, a month. And I think that I'm one of the very, very few full-time renters here. There are some owners who live here, but you couldn't prove that by me. I would say all the times that I've ridden on the elevator and run into somebody else, most of the time I run into people who are just here for the week or the month. Very rarely do I run into anybody who actually owns a condo here and lives here. And in reading about that Miami condo building, I think that's also the same situation. Most of the people who owned the condominiums in that building did not live there. They were renting them out. Well, what does that mean? It means that the renters, I'm not so sure how much they care about the condition of the building. It's not their investment. They're just renting and they can move. They can leave at any time. In addition, the owners, though, they live somewhere else. Maybe not even in Florida, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, usually northern states. But so they don't know about the condition of the condos, the building, the property, or anything else. And if you've been reading the articles, what do you see a theme starting to develop? All these condo owners are saying, well, we didn't know it was this bad. Or they told us that it was going to cost this much per person to improve the building. And these condo owners thought that they were getting ripped off. Whereas I happen to believe if they actually lived here, if they were living in those condos and were experiencing the cracking and all those things, the standing water and everything, then their attitude would have been different. But I think you get the feeling that the people who were really responsible for this, the people who had sunk their money into these condos, it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. I don't see it, so it's not a concern to me. And if I'm being told about it, it feels to me like there might be something, suspicious going on here. Well, they need these repairs, but it's going to be $80,000 per condo unit or something. That's crazy. Well, now that the building, most of it collapsed, maybe that amount of money per person wasn't crazy. So there's that. But I think eventually, here's my prediction. And you should know this condo building has a board, and I see they have these meetings. What is it? Every once a month or something. And they post the notice in the elevators. That's the only reason I know. I'm not allowed to go to one because I'm not an owner. I'm just a renter. Okay. I've never been to one of these meetings. I'm not allowed to go. So, but I know they have these meetings and you can see what the agenda is going to be. And so I know what they're talking about. And it's obvious to me that they take this building and the quality of it very seriously. Very, very seriously. And I think what we're going to find out regarding the condo in Miami, most of which collapsed, is that although there's certainly going to be blame on the current condominium board, the people, the president, et cetera, responsible kind of representing the condo association and making sure that repairs are made, et cetera, I think what you're going to find is a lot of the blame is going to go to previous boards in ignoring things, or they just weren't forceful enough in trying to convince all of those condo owners who didn't live there that, hey, we need to start sinking some money into this building because we got stuff that's falling apart. I think that's what you're going to find. Now, there's probably going to be a lot of blame, and this is where the kind of the disappearance mystery side comes into this. I think what we're going to find is eventually it's going to be a lot of different reasons why this building collapsed. There's going to be engineering problems. There's going to be ownership problems. There's going to be money problems. There's going to be design problems. There's going to be a lot of things, as it is with any accident that's ever happened. Plane crashes, bridges collapsing, like the one in Minnesota that happened on my birthday. What was it, 2007, something like that? All of these things can never be narrowed down to one particular reason. It's a cascading of things that all come together. Very much like disappearances. This is the exact reason that on Unfound, the reason I do the interviews the way I do, where sometimes we don't get to the actual date of the disappearance until like an hour into the interview, is because I want all of you to understand that all of these disappearances pretty much started to occur before that date. There were things going on with that person, relationships, jobs, mental issues, drugs, and all of these things finally lined up, unfortunately, on this particular date that the disappearance happened, whether it's foul play or not. And this is the way it is with tragedies like disappearances, tragedies, accidents like buildings collapsing. And so there's going to be a lot of blame to go around, but ultimately, one of the main issues I think is going to be you had a lot of condo presidents, and I think Sheree even sent me, and I'd seen it before, but it just occurs to me that Sheree sent me this, that you find out that they had many years in a row where the condo president, there was one, then a different one, then a different one, then a different one, then a different one. And I don't know if they didn't want to run again or they weren't getting reelected, but that's not usually a good sign. So when you have a lot of turnover like that, I think that's what you're going to find. I think there's going to be a lot of blame to go around, but that's probably one of the forgotten parts. It's owners who don't want to pay because they don't live there and they're not seeing these things. They got other things to do. They bought it as an investment, so they don't want to hear anything about putting any more money into it. But this is surely one of those situations where when you see something up close, it's easier to take it seriously than if you're just being told about it over the phone. Now, what exactly happened last week to cause something, a defect or something that finally went that 1 millimeter too far or anything else? It's going to take a while to figure that out. You know, I've seen all these pictures and deficiencies and rebar that's rusting and everything else. Just don't know yet. Could be, once again, I think it's going to be a combination of things. Of deterioration, of rusting, of salt water, of standing water, maybe the construction that was going on nearby. Maybe there was a small sinkhole that developed underneath that maybe if it was a fine, solid building, it wouldn't have collapsed because it was weak. The sinkhole formed and it collapsed. Certainly possible. They're working on the roof. Did anything on the roof, the weight of that cause something? It's probably going to be a lot of things put together. But being that I see so many stories about condo owners who lived elsewhere talking about, oh, we didn't know. And they were, that tells me a lot. Once again, from my experience, living in a building where I know most of the owners do not live here. They're somewhere else. It's just very, very fortunate in this building that the condo association obviously is a good one. Obviously. Anybody who would ever come to this building would know right away, even though the building is 35 years old. And now I can tell you in my particular condo, it certainly needs some upgrades. Whoever painted this place at some point did a very poor job. There are some fixtures in here that are very 90s-ish. The sliding glass door over on the other side could be fixed, could be better and a lot of things. So even I can say in this condo that I live that is fantastic. You know, some of you have seen the views and everything. Certainly this condo could be upgraded, but there is nothing in here that is of a safety concern. Some of the things in here are just old and could be improved. But these condo owners don't want to do it. So what are you going to do? It's just one condo. So that's kind of my take. K-Dog, you know, being that you brought it up, I'm not worried about this building at all. Zero concern. Zero concern. But for those people who live around that building down there, maybe built by the same contractor or something like that, maybe there should be a concern. Maybe there should be. Let's see what everybody is saying here. I've gone on a little bit of a rant. Spleen says, another YouTuber I watched just sold her condo. She was in Pensacola, I think. LaFord says, I work with engineers. Great group of people for the most part. Yeah. But they do make mistakes. You know, the Hyatt Regency Hotel, you know, that walkway that collapsed, killing 100-some people. Mistake. But once again, even in that disaster from the 1980s where a lot of people got killed, it was a succession of things that all came together that day. It wasn't just a bad design of the walkway. It was the fact that a lot of people that the hotel, nobody could have ever predicted were going to be on that walkway because of this dancing competition. And then it all came together and it collapsed. Cherie says $600,000 for one of those condos in that building. Yeah. I saw that. Cherie, and dare I say it, the condos in this building that I live in go for way more than that. Hello, Robert. Cherie says that's the way it goes, isn't it? The board members are the only ones that can attend, but also the people most removed. Well, you know, usually there's representatives who do live on the property, like happens in this building. But once again, their job is to try to convince all the other condo owners that we got to do something. And if you don't have a forceful owner who, you know, lies down, you know, too easily and doesn't want to give anybody a hard time and everything, then it's going to be tough. This is, you know, it's like an HOA. You know, to run an HOA, and my brother Michael ran the HOA in his complex there for a couple years. You have to be a hard ass. I know, and a lot of people have a lot of complaints about HOAs, and I can certainly understand that. But if you're going to want to be the president or wherever, you're going to have to rule with an iron fist. And it just doesn't seem to me that's what was going on there. Hello, Louise. Yeah, I did see about Bill Cosby. We'll not be talking about that tonight. Louise. Charlotte says, do you think it could be that the building materials were inferior? Charlotte, I doubt it. I think if the building materials were inferior, that this building would have come down years ago. I don't see how you could build a building of inferior materials and it lasts for 45 years. Okay. I do understand that it seems they might have done a few things. They added like a penthouse that wasn't in the original design, but I've also read that was planned, that the increased weight was planned for in the overall design of the building. So I think if it was inferior materials, this would have years. I don't think it would have stood for 45 years. Linda, I get you're not allowed at the owner meetings, but as a full-time renter, are you allowed to make some aware of concerns? I have, Linda. Yes, I have. You could do that, of course. Yeah. Right, Eileen. Shri says, Vibe board members left because of the disagreements regarding the money for repairs. I believe it. I believe it. And my impression is also that I just don't know. It just doesn't seem to me that building, even though it's a condo high-rise building and it's on the beach. And as Shri pointed out, one of those condos goes for $600,000. I have to tell you that surely living in that building in that area in Miami Beach, that property is more expensive. It's ritzier than where I live. But being that one of those condos is only $600,000 tells me something. I think that if my building, actually it's two buildings technically, if this property was where that property was in Miami, these condos would cost way more than what they were costing in that building. There's no doubt in my mind. So that also kind of tells me something that maybe, even though it was there and it's on the beach and everything, it wasn't as exclusive and everything as you would think. And maybe that was a factor of, could be that these condo owners might have thought, we're not getting a return on our investment. Here we have this building, we have this condo in this great area and everything else. And the property value, our condo values just haven't gone up as much as we thought. Could be. And so they don't want to put any money into it. And once again, give this video a thumbs up as you're watching it. Thank you for reminding me, Linda. Spleen says, I'm so excited to be here. I'm usually not home. Well, good to see you, Linda Spleen. Louise says it happened in the UK with the stuff they had used on the outside of the big block of flats. It caught fire and went up in minutes. Lots died. Grenfell Towers. Louise, I'm familiar with a collapse in England going back many, many years where a whole corner of a building just, what they call pancake, just completely collapsed. Maybe due to a gas leak or something. I remember that seeing on Engineering Disasters or something. Maybe it was Grenfell Towers, but it might have been something else, where the whole building didn't collapse. Just one section went straight down, like a corner of it. So what happens if the owner doesn't care or want to do anything? Well, I'm sure, once again, Linda, the issue is that it wasn't any particular condo that the problem was. It was the building itself. And the issue is that nobody wants to pay for something that they don't think is theirs. These people think that, well, my condo is mine. Well, if something's going down on the bottom, what do I care about that? There's some cracks in the foundation. Well, that's, there's an economic term for this that I can't think of right now. Tragedy of the commons or something like that, where everybody thinks it's somebody else's problem. And it's everybody's problem, but it's nobody's problem. And nobody wants to put any money into it because they know there are other people who don't want to put money into it. And so that means they're going to have to even pay a bigger share. And that means other people are going to get off scot-free, even though they should be paying. So there might have been that going on in that condo building as well. Will this building situation be a criminal matter? Sabrosa, I can tell you that at least in the United States, unless they can prove there was really intent, usually not. We've had, plane crashes where the maintenance was not done the right way. There were shortcuts taken, things like that. And none of these people ever go to jail. I know in other countries, it's different. But unless there was really something where there were payoffs and there was some sort of shortcuts taken and they can prove all of that, I doubt that there's going to be anybody, it's going to be a criminal matter. I would be surprised. Shri says, one condo is $600,000 in discount. Total repair cost $50 million. That's over 40 years, 150 lives at stake. Yeah. I think I read, Shri, where it was going to be $80,000 per condo owner to cover the repairs that were needed for this building. Elena says Grenfell Towers in London had obsessed this insolent. Owners of this flat's trying to sue company owns the building on health and safety. Okay. Yeah. Eileen says conditions could make materials inferior if they didn't anticipate them. Well, then it might go to the design, Eileen. I've read that there was a flaw in the design where this particular area should have been slanted so the water could run off. Instead, it was flat. So there was a lot of standing water, which then leads to cracks and things. Could be, but I don't know if that's criminal. Everybody approved it. It's a design flaw, but once again, for it to be criminal, I think you have to prove there was intent. Was it gross negligence? I think that would be tough to prove. I'm skipping over the Summer Wells stuff. Cherie says, I'm familiar with board members making decisions for everyone and not really understanding how things actually work. That's all I'll say. I work for the government. They might be watching. They are watching you, Cherie. It's not paranoia if they really are following you. They are watching. They aren't board members. That's funny. Charlotte, I wonder why it took so long for them to realize it was a problem. Well, if you follow, they knew that this was a problem for a while. There was conversation going back several years about improvements that needed to be made, complaints about standing water, complaints about cracks and things. But this is one of those things that nobody takes it seriously because nobody really believes that a building that's 45 years old is just going to fall down, especially in the United States. This is kind of the argument that I make when people say, well, you should write a book about, to people so they know how to avoid disappearances and things. And what do I always say? Nobody's going to read it because nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them. Just like most people don't care about, diseases, multiple sclerosis, cancer and things until they or someone they really, really care about get it. We have all sorts of warning signs and public service announcements and everything else about how if you go out in the sun too much, you can get skin cancer. People still go out and get sunburned. Just don't believe it's ever going to happen to them. So when the issue is a building and you're supposed to put money into it, human nature is like, well, it's still standing. You must be wrong. If it's so bad and it should have collapsed by now, well, it's still standing. Why should we do anything about it? So, it's no different than having a car. You have a $50,000 car and it's out of warranty. And a mechanic keeps telling you, if you don't do something about this, it's a $10,000 repair. It's going to get you stuck somewhere. I'm telling you. And most people, they say, well, it hasn't broke down yet. I'm going to keep driving it. Same thing. Just not familiar with Grenfell Towers. I think I've seen that. I was just thinking about a different. I know about the Grenfell Towers. They painted the outside of it with something that was flammable, but I think that I'm thinking about a collapse of some type, Louise, that happened years and years ago, maybe in the 60s, on which there was like a gas explosion on one of the floors. An entire section of the building, a corner of the building, just collapsed. I don't know. I just wish I could think of it. All right. So that's my opinion on the Miami condo collapse. But it's very much like disappearances. That at the point that the collapse happens, that the point at which the disappearance happens, it is just the culmination of a lot of things that happened days, weeks, months, years before. And then everything comes together on that day. Once again, it doesn't matter if it's if we believe it's foul play, if we believe the person walked off, overdosed, or whatever else. They're all like that. Likewise with these disasters, whether it's the Miami building collapse, the bridge that collapsed in Minneapolis or St. Paul back 15 years ago, or the Narrows Bridge that you've seen back in the 1940s. It was going like this and finally tore apart right after it was built. These things are all a long time coming. So let's move on. That was kind of an disappearance item, but let's move on to some of these things. We're already almost an hour in here. Let's move on to some of these items. The Cyriacks poll. It was unanimous that Brad in the group that Brad planned Rachel's disappearance. That he had been thinking about it while he was in jail. She comes to pick him up, and he does something to her very quickly. I have to admit, in the think tank, it was a bit of the opposite. But really, this was a different type of think tank this week because there's not a bunch of theorizing to do. So we did a lot. We talked a lot about domestic violence. And unfortunately, some of the members in the think tank have experience in that area. Very sad, but I at least respect them for, admitting this and talking about their experiences and what they know about it. So we did a lot of talk. We had a long talk about domestic violence and why it happens and what is going through women's minds and how are they feeling when this is happening. And so we didn't do a lot of theorizing about actual facts in Rachel's disappearance, although we did talk about, could the children have been the reason that this happened and everything. We just did a lot of talk about domestic violence, and domestic violence is something we cover quite a bit on this program, but it seemed really appropriate to talk about it in this particular disappearance because we didn't have a lot of facts to talk about. By the way, the think tank, Unfound Podcast, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast if you'd like to become a Patreon member, and be very special if you ended up being a premium Patreon member where you could join in the think tank, Unfound on the Ground, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you're more of a PayPal person, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. Do not forget the super chat that is going on right now as I do this live show. Let's move on to this. I'll be talking more about this at the end of the show, but had an interview fall through. I'm not going to tell you what disappearance it was. I'm not going to tell you who it was. And I surely hope that this person and I can get together somewhere down the road to do an interview. But it fell through on Sunday night, and right away I knew that I would probably not be able to put together a regular episode for this Friday, so that's why we're going to go back into the archives on Friday. So this happens more than any of you probably know. It happens more often with those first conversations where Emily will talk to somebody and then she will get kind of the general information and the contact information and everything. And then she will schedule time that I'm supposed to call this person. And then I call the person and the person never picks up. Leave a couple messages. The person never texts me back, never calls me back. We never hear from them again. This is more common, but I have had interviews that were supposed to happen and the people, they're all ready to be interviewed and they can't wait. And you call them and they not forgive the pun, but they disappear. So that's not exactly what happened on Sunday. But this is just something probably that happens more than all of you realize. I've told you, but I'm never going to rat these people out. I'm not going to tell you who they are. I'm not going to tell you what the disappearance is or anything else because I always hold out the hope that we can get together somewhere, sometime a month from now, a year from now. In fact, I don't think that she would mind me saying this, but for example, the disappearance of Brenda Condo and her sister Iris, who was the interview. I had been talking to her since 2017, and we had scheduled a couple times to do interviews, and things just happened. And then all of a sudden she was ready to go. It took like 3 years or something, over 3 years, but then she was ready and great. And although I've not talked to her recently, I did do a follow-up phone call with her, and she and I are in very good speaking terms. And I hope to talk to her again soon. And she now lives here in Florida. But so you never want to rule anything out. You never want to block anybody. You never want to start ignoring them or anything. But it does make my job a little more difficult. So Louise says it's surprising how many men suffer domestic violence. A lot don't say anything as I think they feel embarrassed about it. That is true, Louise. Elena, with relationships being the top reason people go missing, no wonder domestic violence is often present. It's sad, really. That's true, Elena, but I think we've also proven that you can have disappearances in relationships where it doesn't seem there was any domestic violence. Angela Green, Marion Hurley. No, they seem to have, at least in Marion Hurley's case, they seem to have a volatile relationship, but I don't know if it was actually domestic violence. It was a volatile relationship where they did a lot of arguing, but I don't think it was necessarily her husband beating on her or anything like that. In fact, it seemed like Marion Hurley could dish it out as well as take it. Charlotte says, my granddaughter's cat is lying on my desk with me bugging me. Well, that's so cute, Charlotte. I see we have a troll again, do we? I didn't see it, Linda, but if you say so. Elena, hi, Louise. Yes, definitely. I've just become living independent after 4 years in a woman's refuge, and there's only one male refuge here in England. Wow, Elena. Elena says, I can't. Emily, my assistant, says, hello, Emily. How are you? I didn't know you were in here tonight. Hello. How are you? I can't believe this one fell through. She seems so excited for the help. I think she has a lot of things going. Emily knows who it is. I think she just has a lot of things going on, Emily. Louise says, do you think the people back out because law enforcement advised them not to speak about the case if it's still an open case as well? Well, that's happened. That's not what happened this time, Louise, but that has happened. That happened with the disappearance. Let me let's check it here. That happened. Let me look at my list. I just happen to have this pulled up. That happened with Patty Dudek with her daughter Jennifer, where she was going to do the interview and the police talked her out of it originally. Luckily, things changed. Took a couple years, but things changed. Did not see the down. Well, somebody must hit the down. Yeah, someone hit the dislike button. Hey, you know what? There are people giving that thumbs down to, puppies running around in circles on YouTube. So, what does that mean? Nothing. I'm glad you're here too, Emily. So that's what happened. Once again, not saying any names or anything, but I hope to be able to cover the disappearance in the near future hopefully it'll be better circumstances for her. Moving on, Unfound Now. Did another one this weekend while I was over in Orlando. I did that on Saturday night after I was done eating my pizza and after I was done watching some disc golf, the World Championships, the day that very famous throw was done. Picked Luis de Villa from Arkansas. He went to Mexico and never came back. I hope you had a chance to watch that. I kind of relished the opportunity to talk about a disappearance in another country. We've not covered any disappearances in Mexico for the official program that comes out every Friday. So this gave me an opportunity to talk about that. And as I said in the Unfound Now, I think there are just some circumstantial reasons to believe that maybe Luis was not telling the entire truth when he made that phone call about going into a gas station just a couple miles from the border. He just might have been choosing to lie on his own, or maybe he was being forced to do so. But that part of that entire disappearance, all the facts regarding his disappearance, that is the part that really kind of stuck out to me. I can't imagine why somebody pulled over just a couple miles before getting into the United States. Shouldn't pull over for gas reasons, because gas is cheaper in the United States. Surely you can make it a couple more miles. If you have to go to the bathroom, are you saying you can't hold it for a couple more miles? It just... If you had said, you know what, I'm 30 miles from the border and I was pulling in, I get that. Couple miles from the border, then I start... That just makes a big question mark, because although I've never driven to Mexico, I've driven to Canada. And here's what I know. You don't stop a couple miles before you get into the United States for anything, because everything is cheaper and everything is easier to do here than there. So, Marlene, what's going on, Marlene? Good evening, Ed, and everyone just got in. I hope I have to catch up. You can catch up later, Marlene. Yeah. Sub Rosa says, "Hey Ed, what's your favorite pizza?" Why are you putting that on my mind, Sub Rosa? Why are you putting pizza on my mind? You're gonna make me break my diet like quick. I have to say that I'm this place called Original Pizza that's down in Indian Rocks Beach, actually very close to where Kelly Rothwell went missing. Or can we just say murdered? It's called Original Pizza, and usually when I would get pizza there, I have to admit I go for pepperoni and anchovies. I know, weird. I know anchovies is really an acquired taste. But that's what I would usually get. A large with pepperoni anchovies, eat part of it, save it for the next day or maybe even 2 days later. So I usually don't go for like premium, like putting everything on it or anything. Just nice and simple. Yeah, they do press the button. Yeah. Yeah. Spleen is making a point about English language, but don't we sometimes say a couple meaning a few or whatever? I find this happens a lot, especially if English isn't your first language, but even if it is, I know I do that. Yeah. Spleen says she loves anchovies. You must be a good person then, Spleen. Addicted says, I lived in Mexico and sometimes the lines are hours to get through the border, so maybe he was scared to run out of gas waiting. Maybe. I think you may be right about that, Addicted. The issue, though, is that, there's no context to the call. They bring this idea up of, conversations that are in context. Do they make sense? And if I were to go to Canada and I was coming back and I called my dad and said, yeah, I'm pulling into this gas station. I'm almost out of gas. I would give a reason that I'm pulling into a gas station. It doesn't seem that he did that. He didn't say I'm going. I mean, maybe it was just taken for granted. He's pulling into his gas station to get gas. Maybe. But it seems to me if there was a line, Addicted, that he would have said, you know what? I think there's a huge line at the border. I may run out of gas. So I'm just going to pull into this gas station right now. I think that if that was the case, Addicted, that should be or would be included in the coverage of his disappearance. And we know that his family have been talked to. We know that his friends have been talked to. I watched an interview with one of his friends, and none of them have said that. So that only leads me to believe that he didn't say it. He didn't say the reason that he was pulling into the gas station, which doesn't sound normal to me. It just doesn't. Because when people call people and say, you know what, I'm going to be stopping in here, they usually go, I'm stopping into this rest area because I'm tired. I'm afraid I might fall asleep at the wheel. Or I got to go to the bathroom or whatever else. I got to get a drink. And, the next rest stop isn't for 30 miles. Usually when you call somebody, you just don't say, I'm pulling into this rest stop and then leave the rest to guessing. I think that, very, very well maybe there was a line. It would have been nice if he said that. Marlene says, I did your Unfound on Lewis was really good. Strange disappearance. You said ate pizza. I love pizza. Who doesn't love pizza, Marlene? We all love pizza, but we all love like different kinds of pizza. Thicker pizza, thinner pizza. What do you like on it? But everybody in general loves pizza. Would you ever reach out to Steve Pankey to see if he'll do another interview with you? Sub Rosa asked. Well, his lawyer is not letting him talk to anybody, Sub Rosa, so the chances of that happening are zero. Now everybody's talking about pizza and what they like on it. Getting gas near the border, weird. Yeah, call to Steve. Cost by the minute now. Look at Cherie making a good joke. Good one, Cherie. GS and SD, I go to Mexico a lot. Border wait times can be 30 hours plus, so bathroom or gas might come into play. Look up border wait time, where and when he crossed. Well, it would have been right there in Laredo, GS. And once again, I'm open to that. But these people have done these interviews, and none of them have said that. I just think the way we all make phone calls when we think that we're going to be somewhere, but we're going to be late because there is a line or something, we usually give a reason. And it doesn't seem that he did. Yep. Shri says, I've been to Mexico many times, and I personally would never stop 2 miles from the border. Louise says, does it take a long time to cross the border to another state or country? Louise, in the United States, pretty much you can go from state to state without needing, if we wanted to make a old German joke, we don't need to see your papers. Or how they talked about in The Hunt for Red October when Ramius and his number one are talking about how they're defecting and he wants to live in Montana, and he goes drive from state to state in my recreational vehicle. And he asks Sean Connery's characters, no papers. And Sean Connery goes, no papers. So we can go pretty easily from state to state, Louise, with virtually no lines, unless, sometimes there's a toll road or something. But, when you're going to Canada, it just depends on the time of day. If it's during the week, if it's a weekend, I've gone to Canada and got through driving from over at Buffalo into Ontario fairly quickly. And then I've waited in for 40 minutes. I don't think I've ever waited for an hour. It just depends. Eileen says, my husband goes to Mexico all the time. He's horrible about riding the gaslight out normally, but even he plans to make it through the border crossing. And we have to remember what his good friend said, that he had been to Mexico hundreds, not tens, not 50, hundreds of times. All right. So Unfound now, Luis Davia. We'll see if there's any new information that comes out in the next weeks and months. Troy Galloway, his mother Nancy. I hope that you all continue to keep her in your thoughts as she recovers from her cancer treatment. But Troy Galloway, the police department has drained that lake that was right practically beside where Troy was living. At the time, they found nothing. No signs of any remains, no signs of anything that Troy owned, nothing. The search has been done. Nothing was found. Kind of predicted that. it seemed like a weird choice. Maybe they had some information that they thought was good. My big question was that you're searching a lake 5 years after he disappeared. It's not that big of a lake. If he went into it on his own, then somebody would have seen him by now. In addition, if somebody put him in it, it's hard to imagine that somebody weighted him down in a lake that's that small and nobody noticed. Maybe they were looking for a gun or a knife or something like that. But even then, how are you going to try to connect that to Troy's disappearance? Even if you find a gun in there, I mean, how are you going to prove that it had anything to do with Troy's disappearance? You're not. So I just don't know. But I can't say I'm surprised that they didn't find anything. Chad says, Hanky Panky, Steve Panky too busy with Bubba. It very well could be Chad. I don't know if he has a roommate in prison or not. I think of which movie was it? It was one of the Fletch movies. Louise says, Eileen, what happens at the gas stations before you cross the border? Is it really expensive, the gas? Gas in Mexico is way more expensive than in the United States, Louise. Gas in Canada is also way more expensive than it is in the United States. Linda asks, Ed, how many times do you try to reconnect with somebody you interviewed before you stop trying? It just depends, Linda. Sometimes you get the feeling that some of these people just need some space. And then other times you kind of get the feeling that these people are just kind of stringing you along. It just depends. And I can't give you, once again, as I told you, and I don't think they mind me saying this now. Brenda Condo, Iris Myers, talking to her since 2017. And, we lost contact for quite a while. And then all of a sudden she texts me out of nowhere. She tells me she's moving to Florida and she thinks she's ready to do an interview and she wants to talk. In fact, she's going to be in this area. Let's meet up. We did. It was great back in January. You just never know. Same way with Jennifer Contreras, Patty Dudek's daughter, who did an interview very earlier in this year. Same thing. Turned over to 2021 and she's like, you know what? We're doing this. I'm always ready to talk. And I'm more than happy to have them on the program. Very excited. And then there are others who then you find out they're just kind of stringing you along. And dare I say it, they just like the attention. They have no intentions of being officially interviewed. They just want to talk. Common. Never tell you who they are, because that would be wrong of me, but they do exist. Why? I don't know. Newsletter, working on it today, coming out probably tomorrow night. I'm about halfway through it right now. Was working on it today, but tomorrow will be July 1st, which means the newsletter will come out, which also means I have to pay my rent tomorrow. So be looking for that in your email. And the new thing this month will be a week from now. I will make an audio version of the newsletter that will be available on the website. But people who are on the email list get it a week early. If you're not on the email list, you're just going to have to wait a week and listen to it on the website. Season 2, Volume 2 of the Unfound book series is now out on Amazon. I hope you will check it out. I hope you will buy one. Buy one as a gift. Buy one for yourself. Buy a few for Christmas. Whatever you want to do. And Season 2, Volume 3 is being worked on. In fact, I know that Jonathan, who is the guy that is working on these, I saw an email where he sent me a bill for the work he's done so far on Volume 3. So I'll have to check that out. But that's in the works as well. And like I said, one way or the other, these books are getting done. So please go to Amazon.com, do a search for Unfound and just my last name, Dentzel. You'll find all of them. And I would deeply appreciate if you could take an interest in them, ebook or print form. Charlotte says, it seems like they probably would have taken Troy someplace further away. Well, you'd think, Charlotte. It's just, I just don't know. I don't know what the methodology was of them draining the lake. You're right. If it's foul play, that would make sense. But we don't know it's foul play. I could certainly believe that Troy ran off if he was on drugs and fell into the lake and drowned. But if that was the case, this would have been solved the day after he disappeared. But it wasn't. Louise asked, you ask for proof about the people who want to do an interview if they say they are the loved ones of a missing bird. Well, we do a lot of pre-checking and things. That's why we have the filter system we do with Louise, with Emily, and then myself. We ended up talking to them several times. We do have a filter system. And we haven't been fooled yet. Linda says, with all the news coverage of Craig Freer, I was wondering if you were in touch with his mom. Linda, I've not talked to Veronica Freer since I interviewed her in 2017. No email contact, no phone contact since that interview. Not for a lack of trying. Elena asks, how much control do guests have in the interviewing process? Most of the control, Elena. I can't make them say anything. Really, all I do is ask the questions. Now, it's up for me to ask the right questions, and it's up for me to guide the conversation in the right direction and keep it orderly and understandable and concise, but they're the ones with the information. I know the information, but I'm never going to be an expert on any particular disappearance because I'm covering a different one every week. My job is to learn the information well enough that I can give them insights, that if I think that I need to look into anything, I can do that. And then eventually I can ask the right questions. So all of the information can be brought out in the interview. So they have all control. We can't talk about things they don't want to talk about. Luckily, most of them want to talk about everything. Linda says, I just got the season 2 book today. It was supposed to be delivered Saturday. Well, I don't know what to tell you about that, Linda, but I know deliveries and all sorts of things are slow these days. But thank you. I appreciate you checking it out. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know. Give it a nice review. Do not forget to give it a nice review on Amazon. The gas is also sold by the liter there, and they pump it. So anyone who travels there usually gassed up before crossing. Yeah, that whole liters and things, don't even get me started, Eileen. Sabrosa says, the books will be a great legacy to the work you do on behalf of missing people. I appreciate that, Sabrosa. It's really not on my mind. I just know that the books allow these disappearances to get into even more people's hands, people who don't listen to podcasts. Louis says, I didn't know about the gas situation in the United States. I mean, the prices are up a little bit right now, Louise, but the prices are up everywhere. So, and even, Louise, even between states, gas prices differ depending on how much the states tax gas. For example, where I grew up in Pennsylvania originally, gas to this day is way more expensive than it is in Ohio, simply because Pennsylvania taxes gas more than Ohio does. And you could have as much as a difference of 30 cents a gallon between Pennsylvania and Ohio. Spleen says, how about Unfound Now books? I mean, they cover a lot of great points. Well, you certainly are trying to give me more work, Spleen, aren't you? I guess it's an idea. I can't rule it out, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. Thank you, Louise. Cherie says, dollar difference between Texas and Colorado. Right, Cherie, thank you for illustrating that. Thank you. Let's move on to this. Tony Marquez is dead. Being that we revisited her disappearance at the beginning of this year, or was it the end of last year? With Dr. Telesco. And of course, we visited at the end of last year, and then Dr. Telesco and I talked about it eventually on one of the interviews I did with her. But who is believed to be the main instigator of her disappearance, he died earlier this year. And I want to thank Anthony. All know Anthony's been on the program 4 times from crimeblogger1983.blogspot.com. He was the one who alerted me that Tony had died back in March. And in fact, Robin's sister, Jody, who was the guest way back in 2016, who I still keep in contact with, she did not know that he died. So that's unfortunate. Another piece of this puzzle has gone away. And so if he knew anything, he took it to his grave. So Tony Marquez, I think I posted that in the group and maybe on the Facebook page that he's dead. So that is, you hate hearing that. I know a lot of people might be saying, good for him. He went, he's going to finally get what he deserves and everything. I really wish that all these suspects were alive. I think them being alive increases the odds that these disappearances will get solved. So, but that's some news. Eileen says, I live in California. We have a summer blend that we have to pay a fun amount for. It sounds like coffee, Eileen. Summer blend. Thank you, Nina. Thank you for giving me a thumbs up, Eileen. I appreciate that. All those thumbs up. Eileen says, California, $4.98 a gallon. Oh, my gosh. Addicted says, also, if you smoke cigarettes are way cheaper, then that's a reason to stop too. Could be. I don't, I didn't check that, Addicted. I don't know if cigarettes are cheaper in Mexico or the United States. I really don't know. In fact, I don't smoke. I've never smoked. I never will smoke. The only way I even knew back in the day how much cigarettes cost is when I worked for 7-Eleven for 10 months. And I know what I've been told because my brother's wife is a big smoker, that I know the prices for cigarettes are just through the roof. You'd think at some point, I know these people are addicts. You'd think at some point, though, looking at the cost of that they would say, man, I really got to stop doing this. It just, at some point, doesn't the cost just become prohibitive? Spleen says, now I want coffee. Well, you can get some coffee, Spleen. Coffee and Unfound usually go together. I don't drink any, but you surely can. Let me move on to this. This is something very, very interesting. Working on a disappearance. It's an older one. It's almost 30 years old. And this is one of those rare times when I've decided that I am going to file a Freedom of Information Act request. Found out about this disappearance. I've talked to the mother of the missing person. A lot of things she said caught my ear. Some things that I wanted to look into. And just on a whim, I contacted the police department that is responsible for this disappearance. Did not do an official request at that time. I was just inquiring as to how many pages the disappearance, the missing persons report file was for this case. That's all I did. Just wondering if the information existed. If it does, how many pages is it? How big is the file? And it was one of those things. If they told me that it was like 10 pages, I'd be like, well, I don't know if that's worth anything. It's not worth, filling out all the paperwork and then waiting for it. And well, this clerk got back to me. This is a true story, and my assistants already know this. The clerk got back to me about how many pages this missing persons file was. It's 628 pages. 628 pages for a disappearance that happened around 30. I'm not going to tell you what it is. About 30 years ago. So as you would expect, I immediately said, I think I want to take a look at it. And I got to tell the mother that, I don't know if you know this, but the missing persons report she had 600 some pages. She had no idea. So we're going to find out what that looks like. So I sent the money in, not cheap. I am paying for it. The family is not. This is coming out of Patreon money and PayPal money and Super Chat money. That's one of these things. And they will be emailing it to me. Now, the person admitted that I can have all the pages, but any personal information will be redacted. So names, phone numbers, things like that, which is fine. But when you get told that something about 620 pages, you got to take a look at it, because I will tell you, the disappearance does not seem that it would need 628 pages. I'm not saying, but it's certainly not, it seems like a very complex one. And really, the mother of this missing person, really had doubts of how much of an investigation was really done. So she was really, really shocked when it was 628 pages. So the person says, you send the money, I'll send it to you, minus, me redacting all these things, you can have it. So once that's done, they're going to email it to me. So, the reason I really don't do them, FOIAs, is because you usually have to wait a while, and there's usually not that many pages, and usually they don't tell you much more than what you already know. In fact, they probably tell you less than what families know, have learned over the years. But when you find out that one's 628 pages, it's just one of those things. Well, I got to see that. You just got to do it. I'm not saying it's at any price. I mean, if it was like $1,000, then I probably would have said, well, man, I don't know about that. But, and I don't know where that line is, but when they told me how much it was going to cost, I said, yeah, I think I can do that. So I'll let you know how that goes. As you know, I usually don't like to talk about specifics of disappearance cases. I'll let in the newsletter, I'll let you know some of the things that we're working on. But, I, as far as the FOIA goes and whatever is in there, will not come out until we do an official interview for the program. But as usual, we'll try to cover as much of it as possible. Spicy says, Elena says it's frustrating on some missing or murder cases where the cops have a suspect but don't have enough evidence to charge him. True. Spicy, I should pretend to smoke and put the money I would spend daily in my bank account. I'd be loaded. Yeah. Eileen says, woe to the 628 pages. Charlotte says, that is something. Louise says, is it 600 pages because law enforcement thinks it's a suspicious disappearance? I don't know, Louise. I haven't seen it yet. I just don't know. All I can tell you is the mother of this missing person was on the impression that not a ton of stuff was done. Now, I'm fully prepared that, in these 620 pages, there's probably going to be some duplicates and just cover letters. I'm fully prepared, and it's going to be a lot of redundancy and everything else, but it's 628 pages. So how much copying and redundancy and blank pages and cover letters can there be? So we'll see. I just can't answer that now. Linda says, is it 628 pages because it is handwritten? I don't think so. This is certainly in the typing era, Linda. So I just don't think it's that. Eileen, thank you very much. Thank you for the super chat. You're very generous. That money will go toward the receiving of this FOIA information. And I could tell you that this mother's ready to come on the program, but she, of course, we want to go through all those pages first. And let's just say she has a lot of nice things to say about me. Besides that, I've been able to track down some people that she's been trying to track down for years. And I've been able to find some of these people. Unfortunately, at least one of them is deceased. I don't know what that's going to mean, but this mother, she even said to me, and you should know, this is a person who came to the program through Megan Good / Lioness from Charlie Project. And she even admitted that, I just thought I was going to talk to you and you were going to interview me, and that would be that. And I said, really? That's not really how I do things. She goes, I didn't realize that you'd take such an interest. I didn't realize that you tried to track some of these people down. I didn't realize that you would call the police department and try to find out how many pages. She goes, I've been waiting for somebody like you for years and years and years. That's what she told me. What can I say? Thank you once again, Eileen. Come on, Eileen. Thank you for that. Linda says, would you consider posting the file of cases you have already covered? Linda, it just depends what you mean by file. I'm not sure I know what you mean by that. Eric says, maybe if the font size is max. Yeah, you watch, Eric. You watch, I'll get it. And each letter on the page will be like this big. That would be something. Now, maybe I shouldn't be too surprised if that's what happened. That would be funny. That's funny you bring that up, Eric. Good one. Thank you, Emily. Yes. Louise says, could it be 600 pages because it's not double-sided, separate pages for each transcript? So about 300. Louise, even if it was 300 pages, that would be a lot. If he would have said that's 300 pages, I would have been shocked. So 600 just goes above. I've never heard of a missing persons report file that big. Now you watch. We'll get it. It'll be all blank pages except for one. You just watch. And if that happens, I'll tell all of you. I'll be fully honest with you and telling you, that file I talked to you about, I got it. And there's only one page of meaningful information. And I'll be honest about it. But Louise, even if it was 300 pages, I'd have been shocked. So it's double that. Linda says, police files or files? Well, I don't have many police files, Linda, so that is not going to happen. But as far as files of your interviews, the episodes are the files, Linda. And with the books, I'm, slowly putting those transcripts into books so people can read them for yourselves instead of just listening. I think sometimes with reading, it's easier to go in instead of, being on your phone or whatever, rewinding and playing and rewinding and everything. So the books are essentially the files, Linda. It's just, it takes a while to put it all together. Elena says, Charlotte, Google missing Lena Chapin. She witnessed her mom murdered someone. Then years later, she goes missing and they believe mother killed her. Mike Hire podcast just okay. Spleen says they must get a lot of tips on that case. Maybe it's why it's so big. Spleen, there could be several different reasons why the file's that large. A lot of good reasons, a lot of bad reasons. I just don't know. Just don't know. Let's move on to this. Well, let's answer. Elena did ask me a question before the program started. She was the only one. Elena, what do you think the stigma against missing persons with addictions will lessen with the awareness of these cases being made to the public via true crime podcasts? When do you think the stigma against missing persons with addictions will lessen with the awareness of these cases being made to the public via true crime podcasts? Elaine, it's never going to go away. You know, it's not, we can forget that. It's never going to go away. All we can do is lessen it to a point. It's, you know, I don't know. We'll continue to work at it. Yet my attitude is always going to be the same. I can admit there's a lot of these missing people. Finding out about them, they are not people that I probably would have hung out with. They're probably not people that I would have been friends with. They are people who I would have stayed away from because they were bad news. And on top of everything else, that if I had known them and knew that they committed a crime, I would have turned them in. On the other hand, that's not really what I do here. That's not what we do here. You know, the fact is we've covered the disappearances of people who maybe were not the greatest of people. I'm not going to say any names. Just, you can judge that for yourself. But I don't care about that. But some people do. And I'm sure there is a segment of the population that hear about certain people going missing and just saying, good, we didn't need them anyway. I don't know what you can do about those people. I don't know. We'll just do what we can. But I think that if you get into this thinking that your job is to change everybody's mind, that's going to burn you out very quickly. I think this is the reason, for example, teachers, they know that not every one of their students is going to become Albert Einstein or win a Nobel Peace Prize or anything like that. But if they can just get to a few students every year, then that's pretty good. There are going to be students they can't get to. And students are going to do what they're going to do. They're not going to study. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And maybe some of them will work out of it and others won't. But from a teaching point of view, if your goal is to make every student an Albert Einstein, you're going to feel very defeated very, very fast. So you just do what you can. And that's all we're trying to do here. And not making any judgments at all. Sheree says 600 pages for a missing persons case is a lot. Is it not, Sheree? And as my assistants already know, once I get the file, I will be emailing all of them so they can look it over for themselves. In addition, I'll be sending it to the mother of the missing person and the sister of the missing person. Spleen says you have a Bosch attitude. Everyone counts or nobody counts. Who is Bosch? Spleen. That you the Bosch that I know makes like automobile parts. Who is Bosch? I would love to know. Thank you, Louise, for that comment. So, when do I think the added stigma against missing persons with addiction will lessen? No. Probably what helps, Elena, is I think more and more people are familiar with addiction. Unfortunately, we have a lot more people who are addicted now than 50 years ago, which With more people being addicted, that means more people are going to have addicts in their families and everything. That can change attitudes. But on the other hand, sometimes familiarity breeds contempt. And having an addict or somebody like that in your family only might make you dislike them more. Just depends. Bosch is a great show on Amazon Prime. Okay. That reminds me, another great show on Amazon Prime. My friend Suzanne De Laurentiis' Suzanne Saturday Night Scares. I've been talking about that. I hope you will check it out. Thank you for reminding me, Melissa. That is like a horror interview show on Amazon Prime. Please check it out. My good friend, a longtime friend. In fact, the rumor is that we actually dated at one time back in the day. Please check it out. Harry Bosch. Okay, thank you, D. Not familiar to me. Okay, one more thing, and then I will reveal Friday's episode. I want to read this to you. This is something that came out right before the show started tonight. A couple different people sent me this information. This comes from the Sublette County Sheriff's Office in Pinedale, Wyoming. The date on this story is today. The Sublette County Sheriff's Office provides information in missing persons case of Vanessa Orrin from 2017. Of course, this is the disappearance we covered earlier this year. And Tinker Lynch. Can you believe we had somebody on the program? Her name was Tinker. I love it. That was her nickname, but still love it. I don't care. It's great. You'll remember she came on to talk about the disappearance of Vanessa. Let me just see her for a second. And come on now. Tinker is, just want to make sure on that. Tinker is Vanessa's sister. So let me read this to you. From 2017. In January 2017, the Sublette County Sheriff's Office received a missing persons report. Vanessa Orrin, age 61 of LaBarge, Wyoming, was reported missing. The Sublette County Sheriff's Office has been actively investigating Ms. Orrin's disappearance since the missing persons report was made. Ms. Orrin was entered into NCIC and NamUs as a missing person. Once again, this just came out today, just hours before the show started. During the course of this investigation, detectives obtained a search warrant to search the property belonging to Daryl Pete Petrie. You remember he was featured prominently in that episode in the interview that I did with Tinker. They got a warrant for his property for any evidence relating to the disappearance of Ms. Orrin. On Saturday, June 19th, so about 2 weeks ago, the search warrant was executed. The search warrant was executed with the assistance of multiple agencies, including NecroSearch, the FBI, the Bureau of Land Management, Wyoming Game and Fish, Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, and the Wyoming Highway Patrol. Wow. During the multi-day execution of the search warrant, Mr. Petrie left the property and was later found deceased on June 22nd, 2021 by the Sublette County deputies and Wyoming Highway Patrol. A subsequent investigation into the death of Mr. Petrie was conducted by the Sublette County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Petrie's death was determined to be self-inflicted, and there's no foul play suspected. The disappearance of Vanessa Orrin is still being actively investigated by the Sublette County Sheriff's Office. The Sublette County Sheriff's requests anyone with information related to the disappearance of Vanessa Orrin to please contact the Sublette County Sheriff's Office Detective Division at 307-367-4378. So I would call Pete Petrie a main suspect in Vanessa's disappearance. He committed suicide 8 days ago once the warrant was served on his property. I think that probably tells you all you need to know. Now, what is interesting about this is that a couple weeks ago, when we had a troll on here by the name of Pup, Cherie remembers, this was 2 weeks ago. So this would have been before Pete Petrie committed suicide. This person, Pup, came in here, actually sent me a message, a variety of things. He emailed me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, and then he was a troll on here. That is Pete Petrie's son. And so he was doing this right around the same time that warrant was being executed. That should tell you something. So I think what we could say from all of this, I think Tinker was right. I think Tinker was right in saying that she believed Pete Petrie had something to do with the disappearance, that even possibly Pete's son had something to do with the disappearance as well. So as soon as this warrant was, as soon as they showed up, he left the property. He was later found he committed suicide, which could be a sign that he was feeling guilty. So I put that link on the page. I put that link in the group if you would like to check that out for yourself. Once again, this is breaking news just before the show started. So I guess I will include that in the update episode come August. So what's everybody saying here? The show is based on many books. Okay, Michael Connolly. I read them all as well. Cherie says, can't forget Tinker. Who can? And she and I have been in contact many times since she was on the program. Spleen says, I love the way she got that nickname too. You remember that, Spleen? That's a pretty good memory. Kathy says, Cherie loved Tinker's posts on her own Facebook. Lots of horses. Yeah. So I think what this means is obviously Pete Petrie being deceased, especially if he was the one who caused the disappearance. That is bad news. But it also leads me to believe that investigators are on the right track regarding Vanessa's disappearance. So, did Unfound have something to do with this? Maybe. Maybe. Of course, this is the disappearance. It's not so old, only 2017. But, we covered that disappearance later in 2020. So over 6 months ago. No. Maybe that I know it lit a fire under Tinker again. Maybe that helped her in getting the investigation motivated, getting a warrant or whatever, maybe. So, Cherie says, this is why people get deleted. Okay. D says, I use my trucker nickname a little bit. I know you do, D. That is your code name, a little bit. Okay. All right. Well, it's that time. We've covered a lot tonight. We talked about, of course, we're not done yet, but disc golf, the Miami Condo collapse, the diet. Haven't really been playing a lot of music recently because I was out of town, very busy. Did the poll stuff, all this stuff. So now I am ready to reveal the episode that we're going to pull out of the archives, in which the original opening and interview and everything will play, but then I will add new commentary at the end. I think you know how that works now. I don't do a lot of them, but it's usually the same thing. We let the regular interview play, but the summation at the end is changed to be updated to the present. Of course, there will be new Unfound news and all that. But on Friday, we are going to revisit, and I think this is appropriate since it was just over 3 years ago that this episode came out. It came out in June of 2018. We're going to revisit the disappearance of Tom Brown. You heard it here first. I told my assistants that I was going to do this, and I think Carrie, who is one of the moderators in the group, says, oh, great. So what is going to happen is that there will be a new introduction before the music, so everybody understands that this is a kind of a replay. The original opening, the original summary of the case. Louise, good night to you. Good seeing you. Thank you over there in the UK. So it will be a new introduction, same theme, same summary of the case that was recorded back in 2018. Of course, new Unfound news updated to what's going on now. The original interview will play with Penny. And then there will be new commentary. Then I've already recorded it. I did it before the show started tonight. And it's a lot of long commentary because I go through everything, the major points that have gone on with Tom's disappearance and all the other tangential things since we covered that in the summer of 2018. So that's the decision I made when this interview fell through. I was thinking, well, what can I do? Which one are we going to revisit? And I was like, you know what? It was approximately 3 years ago, June 15th, 2018, technically, that episode came out. So maybe it's time to revisit it. And given especially that there's supposed to be a grand jury that's going to be convened, or maybe it already has sometime this year. This was also interesting for me because I remember that time when that episode came out. I actually wasn't even here. I was in Hilton Head, South Carolina, seeing my parents. And if you remember, I did that interview on that radio station with that radio host in Texas. And I did that while in South Carolina. I wasn't here. And the episode came out while I was there. And it was a big deal. And, it is a moment in history for me because really that was the last vacation my parents took before my mother really started going downhill. I remember it being a really great time, all three of us being together. Them being excited about me being interviewed, about Tom's disappearance, about the video. I can remember them showing them the video, the security video, and explaining that, all of that to my parents and, and everything. So that was going on at the time. So it was reliving a moment in my life on top of everything else. That was what was going on in my life at that time. And I know it's a time that's never going to happen again. So I talk a little bit about that. So that will be this Friday. We will revisit the disappearance of Tom Brown. And it was a long one. That interview was long, but my commentary this time around is longer than first because once again, I go through a lot of things and have some comments to make about all of it. Eileen says, brace yourselves in the Facebook group. Yes. Good night, Louise. K-Dog, what was the video we were supposed to look up on that disc golfer? I forgot. James Conrad is his name. Just look up James Conrad disc golf, K-Dog, and you will find it. Cherie says, maybe Pine Gregory wants to contribute. Well, I do talk about him, and I say, we still hold out the idea. I still hold out hope that we could do an official interview with him. I would love to do that. I'm still open to it. Cherie has all the jokes. She does have all the jokes. Cherie says, that really was a memorable moment for all of us at Unfound. It surely was, Cherie. Yeah. So Cherie says, Puma, talking to Puma, Pine has very little to say, honestly. Well, Cherie, I guess in general, you're right about that. The truth is that I think he and Nathan Lewis are still close, even though one resigned, one got fired. And it even could be said that Pine got fired because of Nathan, whatever, get into all that. But I think that's one of the reasons, Shri, but surely he has a lot to say. He just doesn't want to say it. Puma says Pine knows more. He knows more of these things. Maybe. So that will be Friday. We're going to revisit the disappearance of Tom Brown with new commentary at the end. And what that also means to all you think tank members is we will now get to talk about Tom Brown's disappearance in the think tank, but you're going to have to wait till Monday because July 4th is Sunday. So Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern, you better be there. This will be your one and only chance to talk about the think tank, about Tom Brown in the think tank. So Marlene's sounds like looks like she's getting out. All D's getting out. You're welcome, K-Dog. So that means I'm going to get out too. Been a great show. Disc golf, Miami Condo collapse, diet, music, Cyriacks poll, interview fall through, Unfound now, Troy Galloway, newsletters, season 2, volume 2, season 2, volume 3, Robin Abrams, FOIA for that case, Vanessa Oren. Took a lot of questions from the group, from the chat. And then finally, we're going back to Tom Brown. We're going back to Canadian Texas, Hemp Hill County on Friday. And FCS, as Shri is reminding everybody, keep your head on a swivel. All right. Good night, everyone. Great talking to you. Thank you. I love doing this live show. I don't know why more true crime podcast hosts do not do live shows like this because I love it. Good night.